Hey guys, we are back with yet another episode commentary. There's only like 6 left, and then we're done. Unfortunately, Knight Rider, in my opinion, didn't really end with a bang. It ended kind of more with a whimper. And this episode, to me, is one of those whimpers, I guess you could say. I never really enjoyed Redemption of a Champion. Um, I'm not a boxing fan, and maybe if I was, then I'd appreciate this episode a little bit more. But yeah, not enough action, not enough going on here. Just nothing really stands out about this episode. So I hope I've encouraged you to stick along with me and watch this and go through the commentary. Right? I've painted such a lovely picture, but we'll do our best. I don't think there's a ton here to really go through, but you never know what gems I'll reveal to you that you didn't know prior. All right, so with that wonderful intro started, let's go ahead and unpack Redemption of a Champion. Production 60227, Redemption of a Champion. This episode was written by E. Nick Alexander and directed by Chuck Bale. It originally aired on NBC January 31st, 1986, Friday at 8 p.m. It was filmed from December 13th through the 25th. December 13th through the 23rd of 1985. It was the 78th episode to air and the 79th episode to be produced. And another little trivia bit about the airing of this episode. This episode was rerun on August 8th of 1986. This was the last episode to ever air on NBC. Redemption of a Champion. Synopsis reads as follows. After finding a boxing reporter dead in his home, Michael goes undercover to get some answers. All right, so let's go ahead and dig into it. So before we start, we talked to producer Burton Armus a number of years ago about this episode. He said he always loved boxing and saw this as an opportunity to get some of the greats from the sport on the show. It was a fun episode because I'm a huge fight fan, he said. So it was the opportunity to get in some boxing names. We got them all in and it was great. Don King, Jerry Corey, Ken Norton, Danny Lopez, Carlos Palomino all appeared. They had all done this for a standard salary. They didn't need the money. They had made theirs already. But they were fans of the show, and Knight Rider was prime time, and it was an opportunity for them to star in the show. I remember Don King was happy to be in this episode because we flew him in first class. The bottom line was they starred in this episode because they had done it for fun, and they loved it. And then Peter Peros also added to that and said he fondly remembers the episode because he got to work with one of his idols. Peter says, I was a Ken Norton fan. He was a great fighter, one of the very few boxers to beat Muhammad Ali, and I got to meet him in this episode. So, there are lots of boxing fans out there, including some of the Knight Rider cast and crew, and this was probably an exciting episode for them. All right, start of the episode, we've got Damon Leland, played by Norman Burton. We last saw Norman Burton way back in Season 1 in A Nice and Decent Little Town. He was in on it with Ron Austin, in on the counterfeiting operation there. All right, so nothing too exciting happens between that point and right now, whenever they're at the boxing press event, I guess you could say. But we see this close-up shot when Michael asks Kit to generate a press credentials for him. And this is the insert dash that sat on a soundstage on stage 1 at Universal, and the insert chemical analyzer. Our friend Scott Edmonston actually owns this actual piece, which is really cool that it was saved and preserved, and he's a great caretaker for it. And off to the side, we see some of Kit's buttons. And really, all of these we've seen in the show before, except for RCs, which is interesting. And I have no idea what RCs would be. Maybe it's just an in-joke for RC3. I don't know, but little Easter egg there. So there's his press photo, Tombstone variety, reporters in action. Yeah, it is signed. It's just real light. You can kind of see Michael Knight written there. But this was a nice case where his press credentials matched the story, right? The guy checking the credentials says Tombstone variety. So at least they got that insert right. All right, here's Don King making his appearance in the show. Like we talked about, he seemed excited to be in it. But if we look here in the background, you know, some of you guys probably want me to talk about like Don King and some of these other fighters. But honestly, you know, I could read you what Wikipedia says, but I don't really have anything more to add, so we'll skip all that. Look at that gremlin back there. I think that's a gremlin, right? That looks eerily like the gremlin we saw all throughout season 1. Let's compare. Nope, actually, it's not the same one. Here it is from Cherry to Gold. You can see the paint job is quite different, which I guess I'm not surprised that it's different because, you know, this clearly was one of the Knight Rider crew members' vehicles, I would think. Or maybe it was just a nondescript car that was rented to the show for an extended period of time, because we saw this gremlin a ton back in season 1. Not every episode, but almost. And then it kind of disappeared. So I guess this one probably would not be it. We've also got, while we're on this shot, this guy right here, Terry Kaiser, making his one and only appearance in the show. Terry is best remembered for his role as Bernie in Weekend at Bernie's. There he is right there. And this guy, this is Jerry Quarry that Michael Knight stops to and talks to briefly in the episode. I think he might only be seen in this one scene. All right, so now we've moved. Michael has Ruth Keeler in Kit, obviously, and they're having a conversation, and she talks about like, what kind of car is this, and Hasselhoff says something like, it's an 87, and she'll say, what do they have in 88? He'll say, hopefully quieter cars. The original script actually had Michael telling Ruth that Kit was an 86, but they wanted to make it seem even more futuristic because it was filmed in 86 or around 86, so they wanted to make it seem like it was an early model of something really advanced that was coming, so they changed it to an 87. This is the season 4 insert car, as you might have guessed, and they use 6 different Trans Ams in this episode, which was actually kind of low by this point in the series. They were using 9, 10 quite often in the series, but here they only use 6. So obviously, we've got this car, the insert car, the season 3 and 4 hero car, the right-hand blind drive car, the hardtop stunt car, the hardest working car in the fleet, I call it, the one they've had since season 1. This very, very brief scene of the general purpose T-top stunt car that we first saw at the beginning of season 3. And finally, the left-hand blind drive car. So those are your 6 Knight Rider cars used in this episode. All right, and next up we have Ken Foray, plays Spider-Man here. We had last seen him back in season 3 in Knight in Disgrace playing Danton, right? Yeah. This is his last appearance in the series. Also making its second and final appearance in the series, Sepulveda Dam. We saw this back in season 2 in Nightmares. This is, you know, the Bedford Dam where Michael loses his memory, and in fact, right where he gets out, if you look in the background here, this is where that fake door was, and it almost looks like there's still an imprint there from the set dressing they had back in the day. All right, so this is pretty neat. This is the left-hand blind drive car, and they put this smoke release on it, right? But you get a really cool close-up shot of the actual mechanism under here, which is really neat. There's the exhaust pipe right there, but then they have this in here. It almost looks like they slathered it on with caulking or some kind of adhesive there to hold it in place. But when we zoom out, we can see, actually, that looks different, doesn't it? Is it? That one has little fins on the end. Boy, it's hard to tell. That almost looks like a totally different setup, right? This was probably an insert shot, because note how this one has this board above it here. Still pretty cool. Yeah, this is the left-hand blind drive car here. Backing up, and if you watch, the bumper hits the ground here and actually pushes it up just a little bit. You can see it in the scanner opening and on this side right there. All right, so we've got fake Michael, actually Matt McComb, and fake Spider-Man there getting in the left-hand blind drive car, or at least starting to, but then they cut the scene, and now this is the hardtop stunt car wearing the rubber shell, as you can see. You can see the skid plate under there, the tie, the rope that kind of hold, or the cable that holds the two front fenders together a little bit. And if we look here, what else do we see? Some of the squibs. You can see some squibs right here on the side. Take a look at this. This is the actual Trans Am rear quarter, and then this is the rubber shell. Obviously it wasn't a perfect fit by any means. Yeah, and there you go. There's more of that cable that's kind of holding the shell on the car. Driving away. And you got to give Ken Foree an award for the absolute worst fake, unrealistic death in Knight Rider's history. He's like, oh, and falls over. And if you look in the background here, now that he's fake dead, you can just barely see some of the Knight Rider crew vehicle right there. That's a one of the Comtron style vans, the white with the multicolored red there. All right, so jumping ahead, Michael has escaped the rushing water. He's in one of the tunnels here. What's unique about this is that this was filmed for this episode, right? And this is a real car. But this is the first time in years on this show that we've actually seen the pop-up headlights up. They pretty much quit doing that. They did a little bit at the beginning of season 2, but then they pretty much used the fog lights exclusively. But here we actually see the pop-up headlights. And we see, for one last time, the trajectory guide, which we haven't seen since season 2. They bring it back here. This is one of April's advances, right? April did trajectory guide, and here we are in season 4, and they're still using it. All right, so this is the LA Sports Arena, and we've got this scene where you got, I think that's Matt McComb, and I think that's Andy Gill running down the steps, but then you see the close-up, and it's Hasselhoff, and he actually slid down this banister, and I think I read somewhere that he hurt his tailbone, maybe, doing this? Something like that. But see, then it cuts over, and it's, no, maybe that's not Matt McComb, but that is Andy Gill right there, coming down to tackle him. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, not Matt McComb. I don't know who that is, but that's Andy Gill.
Action! Terry! David, go!
All right, and finally, we've got the last scene with Bo and Ruth Keeler. This is Ken Norton, the famous boxer here, and again, I'm not a boxing fan, but this is the guy that Peter Paris was really excited to meet. Alrighty, folks, that wraps up Redemption of a Champion. Short and sweet this week. Like I said, didn't really have a lot to cover. Next time, we are going to cover Night of a Thousand Devils, and there are a few interesting tidbits that you're going to want to stick around for to hear there. As always, thanks so much for watching. Hope you appreciated it. We'll talk to you soon.